Hello guys and welcome back to my channel. So today I wanted to read books written by Asian authors as it is AAPI month, which if you guys don't know what that stands for, it's Asian Pacific Islander Heritage Month. And this video is inspired by Read with Cindy as she's doing this whole readathon based on this month and celebrating Asian cultures. I am not gonna be doing the readathon because readathon kind of stresses me out, but I wanted to take part by reading books written by Asian authors. In this video I'm going to be reading books that are written by authors that I've never heard about from different cultures, and I wanted to read different genres as well. I watched this video by The Story Ain't Over, which was about the publishing industry and the lack of Asian authors, which I found so interesting, and it made me think a lot on I guess the authors that I kind of read and the authors that I interact with. I do read books from Asian authors, but I do think most of the time they are East Asian. Usually they are Chinese, Japanese or Korean, and most of the time it is from their like mythology and stuff like that, which I find really interesting to read, which is why in today's video I kind of wanted to explore more into different, I guess, cultures. Something that video also stated was the fact that a lot of books written by Asian authors have to write a certain book to be published and to, I guess, be enjoyed by the public audience. Something that I've realized as well is that most of the time a lot of contemporary books that I've read that are written by Asian authors really write about their experience growing up as an immigrant in, the Western world. I know that it's a reflection of their experience, and I'm not saying that their experience is not valid. I understand as well, but sometimes I do want stories to be written that the author actually wants to write, and I would love if these themes are written in books that are, I guess, like more fantasy or like sci-fi world, if that makes sense, because oftentimes I feel like these themes written in contemporary books kind of get repetitive, or they feel in a way very generic. And when it comes to a lot of authors writing the same story, I just feel like we can't really learn anything from that. So I would love to read stories where these experiences are within the book, but it is more subtle and it really makes you think of, I guess, the overall story and what it really implies. And I feel like R.F. Kuang does a good job of doing this. She writes books that are like fantasy, literary fiction, but she also kind of implies the issues of racism that occurs. Again, I'm not saying that the experiences written by Asian authors like these contemporary novels are not valid, but I feel like we are just so much more than immigrant kids being raised in a Western world. So yeah, I really do want to read books within different genres to kind of explore. I don't know how many books that I'm going to be reading in this video. Honestly, it would probably be 3, but I will try to read more outside of this video, or maybe read more in this video. I'm not really sure, but I am excited because I do have a list of books that I want to read, and I will also link down below Read with Cindy's Storygraph list recommendations, because that's kind of where I got my recommendations. Anyways, let's get into reading. I am 26% into Vera's Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murder, and the author is actually Chinese Indonesian, which is really cool because I'm Chinese Indonesian and I never realized that the author was Chinese Indonesian. But when I look at her last name, everything makes sense. But there are multiple point of views, which is not my favorite thing. I don't like multiple point of views. However, I do think as of right now it does add to the mystery, and what I like is that we get multiple point of views from characters of different races. So obviously the main character is Chinese, and then we have Ricky, who is Indonesian, Sana, who is Indian, and we also have Julia, I think, who's white. I don't know. We only get one point of view from hers, but at this stage everyone besides Vera is suspicious, and that's what I find really interesting because they all, the way that the chapters are written seems like they're guilty. Like there is hints of them being guilty, but I honestly don't think it has anything to do with them. I feel like it's a whole other thing, but I like it so far because it's a mixture of mystery but also kind of comedy. Vera as a character is very funny. She just reminds me of like a very typical, I guess, like Chinese grandma, but she's kind of annoying, not gonna lie. If she was my grandma, I would probably be a little bit annoyed, but also I think she's very endearing, and I don't know, I just find her character funny. I will say something that is very minuscule that kind of caught me off guard is that the references that they make is just so weird. For example, there's this scene where it said, oh, she squinted her eyes like this contestant from Love Island. First of all, I've never watched Love Island. I also don't know who is the person that they're talking about. So for me, I'm kind of confused. Is it the author who is describing that, like referencing that contestant from Love Island, or is it Vera herself who's thinking she's squinting her eyes like this Love Island person? There's just weird kind of references, and that kind of just throws me off sometimes, but that was probably the littlest thing that when I read that line, I was just like, what do you mean? What is this line? But yeah, so far I'm really enjoying it. I cannot wait to read more, find out the overall mystery, because as of right now we're not really getting that much out of it, but I'm excited to see it being uncovered. I finished reading Vera's Wong's Unsolicited Guide to Murders, and I absolutely love this book. But the mystery isn't the biggest aspect of the book. It really focuses on each individual person and how a relationship formed between them because of Vera, who is such an endearing grandma. I love the description of the food that she made because it sounded so yummy and just like comforting, and I love seeing how the relationship with each other developed, because it was seriously so heartwarming to see all these different people from all these different stages in life just come together. And the whole mystery aspect, if I'm being honest, it was kind of obvious. I knew from the beginning who it was going to be. However, the revelation was still surprising because even though I knew who it was, I didn't know exactly how it was going to end up that way. And what I found really interesting is that even though I was right, it was still surprising to see, I guess, the uncovering of why it occurred. But yeah, I really like this book. It was just such a heartwarming, wholesome read, and I love how we get to see all the characters come together because of the murder of one man. And honestly, the way that they diss this guy is so funny. I definitely want to read the second book soon. I'm really hoping that the second book includes the other characters in the first book, but I don't know if it's going to because it doesn't really mention them in the blurb. Okay, I'm a little bit confused because I started reading Aunt Tigress, and this is basically about this girl who can see, I guess, these creatures that humans usually are unable to see, and she sees these threads between people, which I find really interesting. But at the same time, I'm having such a hard time trying to imagine this world. Our main character, her ancestors were tigers, but then they turned into humans, and from what I know, her father and her aunt and everything lived for a really long time, but they are tigers, but they turn into humans. And I don't know why that's such an unbelievable thing, because it honestly isn't, because so many stories have that same kind of plot line. But something in my head about this book just doesn't click, so I'm reading it and I'm enjoying it. I love the premise of the world, but at the same time I'm kind of like, I cannot picture it in my head, because we also have this incubus and it kind of follows our main character around, and honestly it's kind of cute. But when I searched it up, because I just wasn't sure what it actually was, when I searched it up, I wanted to see what it looked like, and the internet gave me like really different pictures. One of them is this really creepy troll demon. You know what? I should search it up and show you guys. But one of them is really creepy, and the other one is like a guy with the wings and abs. So I'm like, which one is it? This is what it's showing me, and I think this is what it actually looks like, and it looks absolutely creepy. Like, what is this? And then we get pictures like this, which is guys with wings and abs. I'm so confused. I'm pretty sure what is written in this story is probably this ugly troll, because it's kind of like a creature following her around. It's like a pet. So I don't understand how it's going to be like a hot guy with abs. It's probably this creepy troll. So I wanted to go on a little rant on this book, okay, because I have some thoughts. First of all, I kind of don't know what's going on. It feels like a fever dream because we're going back to the past, and then the present, so we're getting flashbacks of her, I guess, learning more from her aunt Tigress. And I really like those parts. I think the story is really interesting, but I just don't know what's going on. I don't understand, I guess, the world building. I like the vibes, it's very atmospheric, but again, I'm just confused and I cannot imagine anything in my head because it just keeps jumping all over the places. I still do like those aspects though. I like how we're getting a little bit of stories here and there, but then with the present timeline, okay, I'm having issues. First of all, Janet. My main issue is with Janet, who is the love interest. I'm not really sure if I'm liking the romance so far because it is very insta-lovey. The moment that we get introduced to Janet, they're like already having a first date. The story starts off with them having a first date, and if you guys know me, you would know that I don't really like instant lovey romance. I prefer one that is more slow burn, that we get to see the interactions grow into a deeper relationship. But I also just do not like Janet. She just feels so forceful and disrespectful. There are quotes, okay, I have evidence. There is this part where she calls somebody to like visit this house or something, and a main character, Tam, says, I haven't decided whether to go or not. Janet, you can't just. And Janet says, I can't just what? If I overstepped, and if you want to cancel on him, do it fast. It's kind of things like that where she overtakes Tam's and does things without her permission. And there were instances where she was like, just because you're insecure, like, doesn't mean that like this 𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻 doesn't happen, something like that. And then there's this other bit where it says, were it not for the ghost, I suspect Janet would have never noticed me. So you're saying that Janet only talks to her because she can see ghosts? I feel like there's a difference in culture, and Janet tends to overstep her boundaries with both her relationship with Tam and just like other people. At the same time though, I do think she is very strong, where she does kind of just like stride ahead and take control of what she wants to do. But I just feel like it comes to the point where she's pushing the boundaries of Tam's, and she's kind of like, well, what are you going to do about it? Either I go ahead and do this, or you're never going to do anything about it, so I may as well just like go ahead and do what you're too afraid to do. Janet, as of right now, is just really pissing me off, and I think I prefer the past timeline because Janet is not in the past timeline. Yeah, I think my main issue right now is Janet. I'm literally fine with Tams. I think her character is so interesting, her backstory is really interesting, so I'm gonna try and read more of this, see what happens, see how I feel about Janet. If I'm still annoyed with her and she's a big part of the book, there is a chance that I may DNF it. Guys, I changed my mind. Not about Janet. I changed my mind about DNF in this book because I don't know what it is. The plot is all over the place. I don't know what I'm even reading. However, the storytelling is so enthralling, and I'm very curious to see how it continues and ends, because basically we get introduced to different characters, but then we get to read about the character's background, I guess, and how all of these characters are connected to Aunt Tigress, and because of that, Tam, who is a main character. The different background stories on each character that we get introduced to really reads like fairy tales, and that's something that I really like. As I mentioned before, I really like the atmospheric writing in the book, the vibes that it creates. As of right now, I don't really care about like the romance or anything. Janet is like okay to me now, she's bearable, whatever, but I'm just really here for the story, if I'm being honest. I'm here for the mystery that is taking place, because I am honestly, as I've mentioned multiple times, I'm confused, but I'm also intrigued, and I don't know, there's something about this book that kind of makes me want to keep reading it. I spent up to 2 hours, I think, reading this book because I told myself I have to finish it today, and now my brain kind of hurts and I'm tired. But I just wanted to finish this book because there was something about it that made me desperately want to read it. The thing is, the world building in this book is very confusing because we go back and forth between the present timeline, the past timeline, and then, as I mentioned before, we get backstories of different characters and we get to see how they interconnect to the like final event in the story. And because of that, it was a little bit hard to keep up with because we kept going back and forth to different places. I honestly didn't even know where we were half of the time, and it was really hard for me to create an image of it in my head. But at the same time, I really liked the way that it was written and how it felt like I was reading a fairy tale, and I liked the inclusion of different mythical creatures, and I don't know why, I just like this book. I cannot explain why, but I feel like even though, as I mentioned before, it feels like a fever dream and everything, it was like an entertaining fever dream, I guess. You guys may be asking me, what do I think of Janet? Do I still dislike her? And the answer is honestly no. I do think that sometimes she is a little bit annoying because there are certain snide remarks that she makes, and I feel like sometimes she's a little bit condescending. So there are instances where there are comments that she makes where I feel like if the circumstances were different, that may make the person not want to help her, if that makes sense. Overall, I think her relationship with Tams, it is cute because their dynamic is kind of perfect in a way. Tams is more like shy, and Janet definitely does pushes her to like go more out of her comfort zone and kind of just like pushes her into action. I do like Janet's character because I do think that she's strong, and I definitely do think that after all the things that they went through in this book, there is a form of like trauma bonding, you know, like they've gone through all of these things together. Obviously they're gonna stick together because who else would understand each other more than each other. But there were certain things in this book that I'm not gonna say because obviously that would be spoilers, but those certain things kind of made me question the romance a little bit. But you know what, at the same time, it is cute, and I really liked the ending. And I really liked the little friendship that they created as well with Jack. So we have Jack, Janet, and Tams. And I'll be honest, there were many times where it would be Jack and Janet, and I would read the wrong name. Like it would be Janet, but I would read Jack instead. Anyways, that is not important, but yeah, overall I did really like this book, and I'm glad that I read it. I'm glad that I continued on with it, even though I was a little bit skeptical in the beginning. I started reading Escape Velocity, as you guys can see, and I'm 7% into it, which is 26 pages, and unfortunately I think I'm going to DNF it. I just already know that through my first impression of this book that I'm probably won't enjoy it. First of all, we're thrusted into this world where I don't understand what's going on. It starts off with Henry, who is, I guess, I don't know if he's like trapped outside, but there's this spaceship. He kind of, I guess, is outside of the spaceship, and he's kind of waiting, I guess, for rescue. And then we go back to the past timeline where you get introduced to another character from his point of view, and then after we get introduced to this character, we then go back to Henry's point of view, but they're still like within the same timeline. So I think what we're getting is we start off with the, I guess, present timeline of Henry and like what he's experiencing, and then we're going back to the past and we're getting, I guess, the event that leads up to what is happening during that present timeline. That's what I'm assuming. What I don't like, as I mentioned before, is multiple point of views and also different timelines. If the different timelines are done well, that's okay, but I just felt like it was very, not abrupt in a way, but the way that they did it, well, yeah, it wasn't the smoothest transitions, because sometimes we get the, I guess, present timeline, and then the way that they transition to, I guess, the past timeline makes it easier for you to understand compared to this one where we were in the present timeline and then like all of a sudden we're in the past timeline, and then I'm just kind of confused on where we are and what we are doing, and I don't really know if I like the characters as of right now because we are introduced to Nick, who is Henry's husband, and it kind of annoys me because he always refers to Nick as like his husband, like my husband said this, which is valid because Nick is his husband, like, but I feel like Nick's only role is to be Henry's husband, so I don't really care about his character, and also he's kind of pretentious and kind of annoying, so he kind of just pisses me off, so I don't really care about him. Then we get introduced to Laz, which I don't really know that much about because we only got like one of his point of view, but I don't know why. I feel like all the characters, like I don't care about them, but they're also making me, I guess, somewhat angry. Like Henry is supposed to be, I guess, like the golden boy in this situation, and then Nick is kind of taking advantage of that because he's Henry's like husband, and there's this whole, I guess, like point system and stuff like that because they are, you know, in a spaceship, and obviously, well, I assume that they're in a spaceship of some sorts. I just feel like sci-fi books kind of confuse me because I cannot imagine like this whole living in a spaceship kind of situation because Earth has been destroyed, and I find those kind of premises interesting because I do feel like that's something that will probably happen in the future, but I also just like get so confused, I guess, and I'm not really liking the writing, I guess, as of right now. And yes, I haven't read a lot. I was gonna try and reach the 10% mark, but I feel like at this point I know that I'm not gonna enjoy it, so it's kind of like, why force myself to read it? I don't know what book I want to read next. I don't know if I want to read like another sci-fi book or if I want to read a literary fiction book because I'm not the biggest fan of like lit fic, but at the same time, you know, I can kind of like challenge myself. But yeah, unfortunately, I think this is my first DNF of the month, and I was kind of hoping no more DNFs, but yeah, I was actually really excited to read this book because, I don't know, sci-fi. I haven't read a lot of sci-fi books. I should read more sci-fi books. I've tried looking at some books to read, and in the end I decided, you know what, I'm just gonna read a hockey romance book because who doesn't love hockey romance books? I don't really care about hockey romance, but I just wanted something simple and easy to read, especially because I've been reading a lot of fantasy books, and I don't know, I'm just kind of tired of it now. I don't want to, I guess, use my brain too much, so I want to read something that's like very simple. I love the cover, but I cannot get past this guy's hair because why is his hair, like his hair is so weird, but the girl, the way that she is drawn is so pretty. Anyways, the way that this story is starting, because I haven't read that much of it so far, is that we have our main character Summer, and she has to write a dissertation about hockey or like hockey boys or something. I don't know exactly what the topic is, but I think it's something about sport and like burnout. And then we have Aiden, who is the hockey captain, and he is a jerk when we first meet him. So the whole thing starts off with Aiden hosting this party, and then stuff happens, and now he's kind of being, I guess, punished by working with Summer. What I'm really interested in is that our main character Summer is very against hockey. She doesn't like hockey players, she doesn't like the sport, she doesn't like the ice rink, and she also was very against doing her dissertation on hockey, but then her advisor kind of just forced her into it because her advisor knew that she didn't like hockey. And I'm kind of like, why is she so against like hockey? Like, what does she have against them that she hates them so much? So that's what I'm kind of interested to find out, but I think the whole revelation is honestly probably going to be something stupid. I don't know what it is, but it's probably going to be something that, I mean, I will probably be like, seriously, this is why you don't like hockey the whole entire time? But I am excited to read this. I just want to fall into a like typical romance, but that's what I know of the book so far, and I just wanted to update because I wanted to talk about her, I guess, hate of hockey, and I wanted to know why. So we'll find out later. Guys, this is so funny. Basically, he goes to her dorm room to apologize for the whole tantrum that he had during the office when they first met. And then she's obviously like, no, get out of the dorm. Like, I do not like you, don't want to interact with you and everything. Previous to this, he went to a like flower shop and he was like, oh, what bouquet should I buy when I want to like apologize to like a girl? And then he sees this guy and then he literally says, this guy looks at me with sad eyes, and then he just bought the flowers that the guy bought as well. So he just followed him, and then when he goes to her dorm room and he presents her with flowers, she's like, what funeral, why did you buy me like a funeral wreath? And then her roommate is like, whose funeral did you go to? And he's like, what? And then she's like, you're holding a mourning wreath like the ones at funeral. And that's so funny. This guy is done for now. I'm just wondering how he's gonna redeem himself. Also, like, already I'm getting kind of annoyed because he's already been like, oh my god, I'm trying not to stare at her body, and like how her t-shirt is like near her knees or something like that. I'm really hoping that at least with this book it's a little bit more, I guess, slow burn, because as of right now they don't like each other. So I want that to, I guess, kind of continue on a little bit and then see how the relationship develops. However, I just don't know, because as of right now it seems like it may progress a little quickly and I don't want that to happen. Oh my god, this guy is literally obsessed with her. The definition of he falls first and he falls harder, the definition of pining and obsession, and I am obsessed with it as well. Literally the way that he is chasing after her, clinging to her like he's a dog. He is so cute when it describes him as like being disappointed that she's not paying attention to him, and I love it when men chases after their woman. There's something about it that's just so satisfying. There's a scene where they're celebrating his birthday and he's drunk, and then they're like singing happy birthday to him, and then he says that the lights dim and the chorus of happy birthday begins, but my eyes only focus on summer who glows even under the dim light. He is so obsessed with her to the point where she's the only thing that he sees, and he's constantly thinking about her. And when I say obsessed, I don't mean obsessed in like a possessive stalkerish way. It's more like he loves her so much that he really focuses on her, and I very much appreciate that, because some men in books, especially romance books, they piss me off sometimes, but this guy literally, he focuses on summer and summer only, and I really appreciate that. I literally stayed up all night to finish reading 𝐜𝐨𝐬𝐬. I think I stayed up until 12, and overall I did really enjoy it. As I mentioned, I really like the male lead and how he was so in love with the female lead. What I didn't like was the push and pull. It was kind of frustrating because he obviously loved her, he was very patient with her, which I really appreciated, but for her she kind of pulled back a lot. And then there was this kind of back and forth between them where I wished in a way that he communicated that he actually liked her, instead of just like following on with her, I guess, needs for the relationship, because I felt like because he didn't exactly communicate that he liked her, the book took way longer than it should have. The whole entire time it's him being like, oh my god, she's so beautiful, I'm like in love with her, and then for her it's takes her like a really long time to realize that she feels the same way. I do think that in the end they were really cute. I love seeing their scenes together. When I mentioned before about the reason why she hates hockey and that it's probably a stupid reason, I was somewhat correct. I get where she's coming from. I get why she's upset with hockey and why she doesn't like it. However, I feel like the story does a bad job of developing, I guess, the background of this aspect of the book, because it's there, but it's barely there to the point where it doesn't have an emotional impact on me, and I myself cannot really empathize with the character because I feel like it's not developed enough. When I first started reading it and I started getting like an understanding of it as I continued on with the book, it isn't delved into that much compared to the romance, to the point where her being angry at hockey in a hockey place just seems kind of stupid to me. Like, I get where she's coming from, but the way that it is written is not done well, so I also don't really care, I guess. Overall, like, it was an okay book. Like, it was a good romance book, you know, there's nothing much to it. But that's basically all the books that I'm reading in this video. Thank you guys for watching this video. Please like, subscribe, and all that jazz, and I will see you guys in another one. Bye!